Welcome back to the channel. In this video I'm going to continue to upgrade my home observatory with some cable management to my telescope, as well as make a review of the Svbony SV241 PowerBox and USB hub. My name is Morten and you are watching Frost Astrophotography. Now that I have a new camera and a new filter wheel as well as new filters on my telescope, I was thinking about the cable management. And right now I have too many cables going from the PC in my observatory up to the telescope. I have two power cables because I need 12 volt and also 5 volts for the USB hub, as well as a couple of USB cables, one for the camera and one for the USB hub. And I want to cut that in half. With the Svbony DC and USB hub, I can run one power cable for 12 volt and one USB cable from the PC up to my telescope, and all other cables can be mounted directly on the telescope. I need to figure out where is the best place to mount the Svbony PowerBox, and I also need to make some new cables because I don't want to have too long cables. So that means we are breaking out the soldering iron and we are making some new DC power cables for the dew heaters and for the camera. So let's get started. We are going to take a look at the Svbony SV241, a DC power box and USB hub all in one. I guess you have probably seen this one already. I got one primarily to get rid of some cables going to my telescope and also remove the need for an existing USB hub that I had that was powered with 5 volts instead of 12 volts, and that meant that I needed to have two power supplies to my telescope. Now this DC box and USB hub is fairly small. You have input on one side here, that is coming from the PC, and a DC 5.5 by 2.5 millimeter input on the side here. On the other side you have 4 DC 12 volt outputs, that 5.5 millimeter, 2.1 millimeter in the center, another 2 12 volt DC outputs on the side here, as well as 2 5 volt outputs in the shape of a USB-A type. Now this is only power output and not USB out. On the last side here you have a Type-C USB output and 3 USB-A type outputs, 2 of which are USB 3.1 and one is a USB 2.0. On the back side here you have some mounting options, and I will utilize one of these. There are some markings here right now. That's just because I've been trying to attach some things here to attach it to my telescope. Some other technical specifications here before we move on, and that is the 6 DC outputs, each supporting up to 10 amps. And that is of course based on what kind of input you have for this. And the two USB ports, they share a 5V 8A power output on the side here. That can be used for dew heaters, for example, if you have dew heaters with USB ports. The weight of this thing is 125 grams, and the measurements are 96 by 61 by 21 millimeters, making it compact. And the holes on the back here for mounting peripherals or mounting this to something else is M4 and UNC 1/4. I thought of different ways to mount this to my telescope. I previously used this miniature dovetail holder here, for which I have a shoe, and this was originally delivered with my EVA-Guide 50 ED guide scope, but now I have that mounted on top. So this can be used here, and I just need to mount this Svbony PowerBox here to this dovetail shoe, and that will suit all of my needs. On the top of this one you have a couple of screw holes, and on the bottom of the Svbony box you have equivalent holes. We need to utilize one of these holes, but if I'm going to place it on top here, like so, I don't have access to screw anything in there or in there. So I simply took a small piece of screw here, cut the head off one side, and then I'm going to screw half of it into the dovetail shoe and the other half into my Svbony PowerBox here. I will start by attaching the screw here to the Svbony box and tighten it by hand, and then I will carefully use a wrench here to make sure that it is fastened, but make sure that you have a good grip on the screw here so you don't destroy the threads on there. When the screw is securely tightened to the box, I will simply thread the shoe here from this side and thread it on there. Make sure it lines up the way you want it, and there you have it, a dovetail shoe mounted to the Svbony PowerBox that will fit into this shoe holder here on the telescope, and I can simply fasten it with this screw here, and then I can adjust it if needed to be completely leveled. And this installation is completed here, I would say. The next step here is to make power cables from my high-tech Astro Dew controller and from my Player One Poseidon-M Pro camera that will go to the PowerBox here. Let's get started with the cable management on the telescope here. If you watched my old video, I guess it's a couple of years old now at least, you can see me building or making new cables for everything. That included these power cables to my dew bands here, dew heaters, and those are connected to this high-tech Astro mini dew controller. I've opened it now. You can see that you have two RCA connections here at the end. What I'm going to do now is that I'm going to solder a cable directly onto the circuit board here, and that will eliminate the need for an extra connection when it comes to power. I don't want on any unnecessary connectors whatsoever. So this is located here, and my dew heaters will be plugged in here, and here I will have a power cable running to my power distribution box over there. I used to have a short cable and a connector, and I could connect power on this end, but now I want to have a cable and a power connector that will connect directly into the power box here. I will start off with a normal power cable. Well, it is a little bit thicker than usual because I like to have my cables thicker to be able to handle some more current if needed. So I will use this cable. I will measure how much I will need. There's going to be a power plug on the end here. I'm going to solder that onto here, and then I will connect the other end here on the circuit board. I don't want the cable to be too long, so I'm going to plug this in here, and I'm going to measure roughly to allow for the power cable here. And then I will take just a little bit extra. I will take a cutter there, and I will cut a piece of this cable like this. I will have to trim the ends here. One is going to be connected into the power box like this and onto the circuit board here. So I will need to open up this. Careful not to damage any of the cables here. Like that. And then you have in this cable you have a red and a black. I don't know if you can see that. I think you can. And the red is the positive one and the black is the negative one. So I'm going to peel these carefully. These small copper wires are very fragile, so you want to take it really easy with this. Let's twist these cables a little bit. What you want to do now is to solder the cables here so you don't lose any of the copper wires here. I'm going to take some soldering paste. I'm going to dip the wire into the soldering paste here. That will make the solder adhere to it, and I will take my soldering iron here. I have a small one. And now you can see that we solder the cable here. Next step here is to desolder the wires here. Be careful here so you don't heat it too much. It came right off, and that is black for negative. And I want to make sure that I don't mix these two up. Well, the positive one is marked there, so there's no chance of me mixing these up later. So I'm going to apply some heat here on the back of this circuit board, and that made the cable come loose right away. I will put some soldering paste on the ends here, and that will help me to get this to stick to it. I will start with the positive one here and then gently attach it to the little piece of wire that was left here. Then I will move on with the next one here, the negative one, the black one. Then you simply check to see that the soldering has taken and that the connection is secured here. There's no problem whatsoever. I will feed the cable through here. And gently put this little controller back into its box, being careful with the components here, not to damage anything. Now, as you can see here, there's not any kind of protection against tugging here, so you might want to be careful with this. You could attach something on the inside to take the load if you were to pull on this cable, but I will be careful with it because I know that it can't be pulled on. And I will screw this back together. Like so, and the other screw here. And then we have the little button here. Now I know already that it is maximum, so this is minimum here now, and this is maximum setting for this mini controller here. We'll cut this end. And I will repeat the process, now keeping in mind that we're going to put one of the connectors onto this end here. I'm going to open that. These are very small here, so the positive one will go onto this, the small connector here. And the negative one will go to the casing here on this one. I will cut this last piece off here because I will fix the ends in other ways. I will use some shrinking wrap later, so the positive one will be in the middle like I said, and I will peel that end off. I don't need to peel so much off that one because it's going to be soldered at the end. You don't want to risk short-circuiting these two, so I will peel more of the black one because that is going to be soldered to the base. I will put some paste on here, and I will put that on, making it. I should have some accessories here to help me hold this in place, but I don't actually have it, so I will place something to hold this down so it doesn't move here. You want 3 hands for this, you should have, but I have only 2. Next step is to attach the positive one up here, and I need to bend this one a little bit here so it will stay down onto the small connector here, but I don't want it on the bottom of it, I want it on top of it, like that. Apply it there. And there you have it. It's now soldered, and you can see that there is a good solder, and there's also no contact whatsoever between positive and negative. And I will insert some electrical tape here in between before putting on the cover. I will put some electrical tape here in between the positive and negative wires so that I won't risk any type of short circuit. That would be very bad, to say the least. Make sure that you insulate properly. In this case I insulated the negative one here now. You can see that there is no possibility of the positive touching the negative wire at this time. You can also put a little bit extra if you want around the positive wire, just to be sure to have it properly insulated. I also forgot to tell you that, of course, I also put the cover onto the wire before soldering here. I will slide that up into place here. I will screw it on like so, and the connection is finished. The last step now is to put the cover on, so I'm putting that on halfway onto the connector and the other half just below. And then I'm taking a heat source, being careful not to heat this too much here. But you want to be able to get this to shrink enough so it will attach to the cable here. Something like that. Now we have a very nice cable connector here, and on the other side of this high-tech Astro mini Dew controller, so this is complete now, the Dew controller with the power cable on. I will connect the power to my power distribution here, and I will place it something like this. I will put it on later here, but it will be something like this, and there's no loose cables here, as well as on this side. These cables are exactly the length that they need to be and not longer, so they won't be flapping around too much. and you have it exactly the same length that you want it. Not more, not less, and not any cables to really kind of put together with a zip tie in a big bunch. What we can do now is to make some measurements to see that we have connections between the positive, and that we do, and that we don't have any connection between the positive and the negative, and we don't want that. You can also check the negative, and we have connection there. So this cable, I would say, is good to go. I have some flexible zip ties here that I want to use to mount my dew heater controller, my dew controller here. I will just simply put this under and over here. I will have two of these. I had that earlier, so it will be something like this, and one more over here. You can take normal zip ties if you want, but I find these to be good when you want them to be able to flex a little bit here. So these actually hold it very tight indeed. Now I'm happy with this placement. I will cut the excess off these. Like that. Now the controller is definitely in place here, and it won't move anything. And I keep this at maximum. This is minimum here, and that's maximum. Now I will reattach the dew bands here. These are homemade connections as well for the power. That one was for my guide scope, and this is for my main scope. And then I will simply rotate this dew band here to get the cable stretched, and the same for the guide scope here. So now the cables are stretched, they're not dangling anywhere, and the controller is secured. If we move the telescope, you can see the USB and power distribution hub here. So this cable is now the perfect length to fit into that one. Now that we are finished with the power cables, we are continuing on with the USB cables. And for USB cables, it's not as easy as with DC power cables to make our own. So that means that I have to make do with cables that I can buy. And it's a little bit hard to find the right sizes. I definitely don't want to have too long cables, so I got cables here from a Nordic company on Amazon. It's a Swedish manufacturer, and they make nice nylon wrapped cables here that are very nice and up to the latest standards in speed and data transfer. But that also means that they aren't perfect in length, so we will have to get those attached somehow make it nice, and for that we of course have a load of zip ties here that we are going to use. I'm starting with the focuser here, and for that I bought an angled USB-B cable here. It would have been great if this was angled the other way, but it is how it is now, so now it's angled that way. I will connect that first cable here, and we will put these cables somewhere around here. We will see when we get the other ones connected here. Here I have a USB-C to C that I'm going to plug into device here on my camera, and then into my filter wheel up here, like so. And I am also taking a USB-C cable here to my camera, plugging that into a USB-C on there. I could have a USB-C to C for the camera, but I always want to have one option available to me. Speed-wise, it's going to work fine. I will save this for future use, and that means one more cable here up to the guide camera that is also a USB-C. Now I will have to attach these two power cables somehow, and this also in a nice way. So I think we will be starting with all of the cables going from the back here. And there you have the final installation. The Svbony PowerBox here, and we have power for the camera, the dew heaters, and then we have a USB connection to the focuser, the guide camera, and of course the main camera here, and from that we have a connection to the filter wheel. Everything is secured, and the only thing we need to do later outside in the observatory is to actually hook up the PC connection and power in. So we only need to have two inputs here, and the rest is fixed to the telescope here at all times. You can turn this around to take a look at the other side here. Here is the high-tech Astro Dew controller that we modified before. Power cable to that, and then the power cables going to the two dew heaters here. I will keep you updated during the season, of course, the upcoming season, on this PowerBox, and if I notice anything worth mentioning about its performance. But for right now, I can definitely recommend this PowerBox, and speaking for myself, it was a good purchase, I would say. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing to this channel if you're not already doing so. If you have any suggestions on videos that you would like to see me do, please don't hesitate to leave a comment. Until the next video, I wish you have clear skies.